All right, so let's see. Says graphing y equals sine of bx, where b is the number in front of the x, where it's normally in terms of some type of pi because we're talking about circles in pi. All right, so for this one right here, left endpoint, first, mid, all that good stuff. All right, so now this is going to be over two intervals. All we need to do is one interval for each of these. So when all it does is because the pattern keeps repeating all the way through. So we did this one the other day, basically the same thing. 2 times 0. 0. What is the sign at 0? 0. So if you have your unit circle out, this is helpful, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's 2 times pi over 4? Pi over 2.
And it's 0. Wait, no, it's 1. Wait.
Are you guys okay with the pi over 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay, pi over 2. So now put your finger on pi over 2.
1.
So the sign value is the y value, so that's going to be 1.
Right here.
Very
Next
top.
one will be pi, right?
Huh?
Just pi?
So 2 times pi over 2.
Will just be pi.
Yes, it is just pi. So it is just pi. What is the sign value at pi?
0.
3 pi over 2.
3 pi. So the next one's 3 pi over 2,
And then that would be negative 1.
which is negative 1. And 2 times pi.
2 pi.
2
So 2 pi.
0.
0. Now, like I said, you need it for 1, but sometimes they'll ask you for the math of 2. But all I'm asking for is to graph 1.
5 pi over 2.
Okay. Yeah. So it just keeps going on the pattern. So this is right here. This is the normal sine x. The one in blue is just sine. No, wait. One in red, sine x. Sorry. One in red is going to be sine x. So right here, so at pi over 2, we have 1 pi, we have 0, and at 3 pi over 2, we have negative 1, and back to here. But the one that we have, we did it in blue, right? So it would be here, okay, goes up, and again, 0 at pi over 2, 0 at pi, 0 at 3 pi over 2. So it goes faster, doesn't it? It goes faster. So I didn't actually graph it all, but that's what we're going to come up to. So let's take a look at the next one. For b greater than 0, the graph of sine bx will resemble that of sine x, but with a period of 2 pi over b. Now, I showed you guys again. What is the period for pi? Or I'm sorry, the period of sine.
Y.
No. What is the period of sine?
1.
What is the period of sine?
2 pi.
Oh, yeah. Wait.
This is cosine. Cosine and sine both have the same. So what is the period of sine?
2 pi.
So I start off with,
2 pi.
what's the period of cosine?
2 pi.
So every time I'm going to do this, I'm going to start with 2 pi. So graph over one period. So first, let's figure out. This is going to start off, what is my amplitude? You guys have to remember, do less drugs, you can remember what we did Friday.
It's been a whole weekend.
You know it's in the notes too, right?
Wait.
What was the question?
Amplitude.
1.
Where do we get 1 from?
I just remembered that's what it was.
Someone, tell me why.
It's in a whole weekend.
Wow, this is scary. Yes, go ahead.
Is it because there's nothing in the
Thank you. It's nothing in the front.
Of y?
Of cosine. Here you go. Show. There you go. The number in front right here is 1. Because there's no number there, it's always going to be 1. So my amplitude equals 1. So, next we're trying to figure out the period. So, what does my period always start with? It's going to be 2 pi is equal to, what did I do this? What did I say? 2 over 3, right?
Yeah.
So right there, it's a 2 over 3x, right? Just take all this right here. Just that. Now to figure out what x would be, what would I do to try and get rid of 2/3?
Put it on the bottom. I mean, put 2/3 on the bottom. Wait, put 2 pi on the bottom.
Dividing.
Divide both sides, right?
Yeah, divide.
By what?
By point. Wait. Yeah, 2 over 3.
That's 1, right? 1x?
Nope. So these will cancel.
So x?
Wouldn't it be just 3x?
Could you multiply 3 over 2?
Yes, I can multiply by 3 over 2. But everything is, all the math is confusing for most people right now.
It is 3.
So, yes, 2 pi equals 2 over 3x multiplied by 3 over 2. Right? Those cancel. So I get x would be equal to 3 pi. Okay? X is going to be equal to 3 pi. So my period now is going to be 3 pi. So, do you recall, what is a period actually?
When it stops
Yeah. Period. It's going to be, because we're talking about periodic types of functions. They repeat. They're in a pattern. Right? They're in a pattern. So these ones right here, I'm going to have, okay, it's going to be repeating. But how long does it take for this to repeat?
2.
Every what?
Every
2 pi.
No, 1 revolution, right?
Every 3 pi.
Oh, 3 pi.
It's going to repeat the pattern every 3 pi. Every 3 pi, it's going to repeat the pattern. Now, where does sine and cosine start at?
Sine is y.
Look at the, I'm telling you, unit circle. It's like you guys did way too much drugs this weekend. So look at the unit circle. Sine and cosine start where?
Pi over 2.
Let's drugs, you guys. Let's drugs. Look at the unit circle. Where does the unit circle start? Everyone, put your finger on where the unit circle starts. Wrong. Where does it start at? Where does the unit circle start?
0.
Thank you. Woo! Unit circle starts at?
Isn't that the same as that?
No, it's not.
But isn't the
It's
same
not.
sign?
Label.
Oh, you're right.
Who invented math?
For real.
Now, listen. I'm like, you guys understand why I'm getting like, what the hell? Okay,
That's drug.
it's right there.
That's right.
Okay,
For real.
it starts at 0.
Yeah.
It starts at 0. Hey class, where's it start at?
0.
Thank you. All right.
2 pi.
And where's this one going to end at?
2 pi. 3 pi.
This one's ending at 3 pi. Now, I gotta try and figure out, because I gotta break this up into my 4 parts. And it's always going to be, okay, it's going to be 0, And it's going to be times 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and then 1. These are my different parts. So on my thing, I'm breaking up my graph into two different parts here, right here. Because if you look, when we graphed this the other, I have no clue why this color went all weird. But it looks kind of neat. But anyway.
Can I ask a question and you don't get mad at me?
Yes, go ahead.
Where's 3 pi? Like on here.
Okay, it's not on there. So think about it. Put your finger on 0. No. Like all the way to the edge. Thank you. Okay, so now watch the pattern here, okay? You ready? Now trace around the outside, go all the way to pi. 1 pi.
Oh,
Where's
2 pi, 3 pi.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So, do you guys see? We have to find our parts of this. And that's what I'm doing. Now, to get my parts, okay, parts always is this. The parts is going to be 0 times the period. So that's all you need right now. Because eventually it's going to be plus the phase shift. But we don't know what phase shift is yet. But we'll get into that eventually. Next one. What do you think the next one would be?
Oh, wait.
1/4 times
3 pi.
period. You guys are writing these in your notes, right?
Yes.
What do you think the next one's going to be?
1/2 times period.
Times period. And my last one is just 1 times the period, which just comes out to be my, just the period, right? Comes out just to be the period.
Good shot? Nah, good shot. Knocked out. Knocked out.
It was like, can I ask a question and you won't get mad?
Okay.
She asked if she can use the restroom.
So, for in your notes, I know you're writing this down because it's not in there. This is something specific to here. It's quite specific to my class, my notes, and because I'm telling you guys how to do this, and you'll always work. I know you have it written down, right? And I know you have it, so my step 1. Step 2, find the period. Step 3 is my parts. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and find those parts. So what is 1/4 times the period?
3 pi over 4.
3 pi over 4.
Oh. Okay, I was okay.
What is 1/2 times the period?
3 pi over 2.
What is 3/4 times the period?
9 pi over 4.
9 pi over 4. That's very easy, isn't it? This is a step by step. You have to follow the steps and you'll get everything.
Okay, now I get it.
And so every time when I say, hey, what's step 1? You would say,
Amplitude of 1.
thank you, find the amplitude. I'd say, what's step 2? You would say,
Find period.
Period.
period. Step 3,
Parts.
find the
Parts.
parts. It's the parts. Finding the parts. So I'm erasing this because I know you all have it in your notes. So now it's time to start plugging these in. Okay, you guys ready? Now, 0. We're plugging it in back up here. Plug it in right here. What is 2/3 times 0? 0. What is the cosine at 0?
1.
Where did I get the cosine at 0? It's on your,
Unit circle.
it's on the unit circle. Cosine, put your finger on 0. All right, so let's take a look. Let's do the next one. So it's going to be cosine 2/3 times. Now, this time I'm plugging in 3π/4. What's going to happen to those 3's?
Cancel.
Cancel. And 2/4 is 1/2, right? So it's going to end up being cosine at
Pi/2.
So, put your finger on pi/2.
It is 1.
0.
Cosine at pi/2 is?
0.
All right, next one. It's going to be cosine of 2/3 times 3π/2. Right? What happened to my 2's?
They all cancel.
3's? So now it's asking for the cosine at pi, right?
Which is -1.
Cosine at pi is?
-1.
This is getting easy, isn't it? If you follow the steps, it comes out to be very easy.
It's just
Cosine 2/3 times, what's my next one? 9π/4?
It's going to be 3π/2.
It reduces, right? So it's 2 on the bottom. And 3π/2. That's my cosine at 3π/2.
0.
Yeah, 0. 3π is 1. Alright, I'm ready for this.
Last one. Cosine at 2/3 times 3π. What happens to my 3's? So it's basically going to be the cosine at,
2 pi.
and that is?
1. 4.
Yeah. Okay. So we have, let's look to see what we have. We have my amplitude. We have my period. We have my parts. And now I can start my graph. So step 4 would be graphing it. So let's take a look. I'm going to start here. I'm going to start it at 0. Where does it end?
3 pi.
What was right in the middle? What was right here? 3π/4. And what was right here?
9 pi.
Now, you understanding the parts now? You understand the reason for the parts now, right? See, if you notice, they kept coming up 1, 0, -1, 0. Makes sense, right? There's a pattern to this all the time. So, let's take a look at amplitude. What's my amplitude? So it goes up to 1 and down to -1. All right, so at 0, here's 0. What was my value? 1. So I'm going to put a dot at 1. At 3 pi over 4, it was
0.
at 3 pi over 2, 9 pi over 4, and 3 pi. I graphed it. Not bad. 4 steps. So step 4 is graphing it. See how many more. Example 4, 5, 7, 8. Okay, 7. So I do have to do this next one. Okay, don't go there. Okay. Next one. Class. Step 1. Amplitude. -2. When I'm talking about this, when I was talking about this the other day, what does the negative actually do?
Goes to a positive.
Nope.
I mean, it's not there.
It what? It changes the graph, right? Instead of going up, it goes
Down.
down. It will go down first. So my amplitude. So the technically the amplitude is only 2. The negative just gives the 2 a direction, but it does go along with the amplitude. Okay. So it tells me where I'm starting at for this. So that's step 1. Step 2. Period. So my period normally for sine is going to be what?
2 pi over
2 pi, right? It's normally 2 pi, isn't it? So I'm going to say 2 pi equals what?
3x.
3x.
That's period. That's period.
Yeah, let's define the period. I haven't got the period yet. So what would I do to get x by itself? And the x would be my period. Divide both sides by? So x is 2 pi over 3, right? So my period is going to be? Okay, that's good. So given that, so now what would be the next step? The what? Parts. So 0, quarter, half, 3/4, and 1. Right? So 0 times 2 pi over 3? Okay. What's a quarter times 2 pi over 3? Let's look. Yeah, so 1/4 times 2 pi over 3. The 2 and the 4 will reduce, right? So by a factor of 2, so that would give me pi over 6, right? Because that reduces, that goes to 1 and that goes to 2. So that's pi over 6. All right, next one. What is half? Pi over 3? Because it's 1/2 times 2 pi over 3. pi over 3. 3/4.
Pi over 2.
We get what?
Pi over 2.
Pi over 2. And 1 would be?
2 pi over 3.
There we go. Hopefully this is getting easier as we do it. So, let's take a look at this next one now. So, let's see. Now, what's going to mess with me a little bit here on this one now is going to give me my values. So, to get my values for this one right here, the previous problem, my amplitude was 1, wasn't it? The amplitude is 1, right? So it would only go up 1 and go down 1. Bathroom? Okay.
Wouldn't it go to a negative 2 though?
Yeah. All right, so now let's take a look. So let's plug in right here. We're going here. 3 times 0 is? 0. What's the sign at 0?
0.
Times negative 2. Still 0. Next one. Okay, it's going to be 3 times pi over 6.
3 pi over 6.
Pi over 2, right? So it's going to be sine of pi over 2. What is sine of pi over 2? So it's 1 times my amplitude, which is, so I get negative 2 here. So the next one's going to be, so it's the sine of 3 times pi over 3. So now it's negative 2 times sine of pi. So sine at pi is 0 times negative 2. Is this making sense? I'm hoping it's sinking in here.
Yes.
Anyone have questions before I keep going? Because this is, I gotta finish up this one at least.
That's 2 and then 0.
All right? Okay, so the next one, at pi over 2, that's 3 pi over 2, right?
Yeah.
3 times pi over 2, and this is the sine, right? So it's going to be 3 pi over 2, which is 1 times negative 2, or I'm sorry, negative 1 times negative 2, say positive 2. Now, let's see, we have negative 2, sine of 3 times, my last one's going to be 2 pi over 3. Okay. So what's going to happen to those 3's? Cancel out. So what's sine at 2 pi? 0 times negative 2.
0.
There we go. So 1, 2, 3. I'm done with step 3. What is step 4? So where am I starting at? 0. Where am I ending at?
3. What was it again? I forgot.
It's on you. 2 pi over 3, right? What's right in the middle? Pi over what?
3.
Pi over 3. This one is pi over 6. You guys make me worried. So it goes pi over 6, pi over 3, pi over 2, right? So I asked for the half first because as you're drawing it, It's easy to do half and half. It's easier to measure it out, or estimate it, I guess. And this one, it was
Pi over 2.
pi over 2. My amplitude goes down to what? -2, and it goes up to positive 2. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and fill in my graph then. At 0, what is my value? It was 0, right? Okay. At pi over 6, what was my value?
-2.
At pi over 3, what was my value?
0.
At pi over 2,
2.
positive 2. And 2 pi over 3? Not too bad, right? So it is going to get easier for this. And always, step 4 is... Alright, I'm going to give you guys time. I sent it out.
Missed the eating.
I know.
Bro.